So long ago, it was written that in those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as they saw fit. So Israel had no king, and what people were doing was whatever they wanted. And what they saw to be fit was not good. And they felt that if they had a king like everyone else around them, then maybe they would listen to this king. This king would listen to God and then tell them what to do, and they would start to do good once again. And so Israel, they got their king. And then what happens is that king begins to do as he sees fit. And as he sees fit is not good. Once again, this story has repeated itself. It's the story that repeats itself over and over and over again throughout Scripture. From the very beginning in the garden, when Adam and Eve are given a choice to do as they see fit, eat from the tree or don't, and they do. And sin comes into the world, and this pattern of people doing as they see fit happens over and over and over again. The heroes of the Bible, like Samson, he does as he sees fit, and what he does is not right. Moses has the same problem. Saul has the same problem. David has the same problem. And it repeats itself over and over and over again. Well, welcome to our Good Friday service. Thank you for coming to take the time to remember Jesus' suffering and his sacrifice. So glad that you could be here this morning, whether you're here in the room with us or watching online or over in Westside. Thank you for taking the time. And what I'd like to do this morning with all of us is to just take us through some of the moments leading up to Jesus' death. And we're going to see this pattern of people choosing to do as they see fit take place once again. That same old story is going to take place once again. It's going to be the motivation for the choices that people make. And so as we listen to this, I want you to be aware of where in your life are you just doing as you see fit, rather than doing what God is actually calling you to. We're going to end this time together taking communion. And so whatever it is that God drops in your heart, saying like, hey, that's the area of your life where you're just doing what it is that you want, not what I'm actually calling you to, bring that to him in that communion moment, that sacred moment. So the story leading up to Jesus' death, you have Israel, you have Jerusalem, and it is Passover season. And so Passover season, it's this celebration of Jesus rescuing the people of Israel, rescuing them from Egypt. They're oppressors. They've been oppressed by them for a long time, and Jesus miraculously brings them out. And it's an incredible story that they remember every single year. So they're in Jerusalem. They're celebrating Passover, their freedom from their oppressors, only to find themselves, once again, oppressed. You can imagine that they would feel a little bit of tension around that. Looking around, seeing Roman emblems and seeing the Roman soldiers around them. Be like, wow, how are we here again? And so you've got the Romans who are very aware of this tension. You have the religious leaders who are also very aware of this tension. They want to hold things together. They want to keep the peace in this time because there could be a lot of tension on any year. But this year, Jesus has shown up. Jesus is doing incredible things. People are talking about him. There's a buzz about who Jesus is, the miracles that he has performed in public and in secret. And people are saying, Jesus, he's the one we've been waiting for. He's the Son of God. He's the Messiah. He's the one who's going to free us. Jesus comes into Jerusalem, and he's welcomed as a king. So you can imagine the tension that could be felt. And no one felt it more than the religious leaders. These guys had a lot at stake. They wanted to hold things together. They wanted to keep the peace. They didn't want riots to break out or for the people to rise up because they wanted to keep things together, just like Rome did. And so they had a problem on their hands. And the problem is that Jesus claims to be God. Jesus claims to be God, and this claim is huge. Him claiming to be God upsets the whole system. It upsets the way of life that they have. It upsets the order that their society is built on. Because if Jesus is the Son of God, if he's the Messiah who's finally returned, come to them, everything is going to change And they do not want that. They do not want that at all. So their problem is that Jesus claims to be God. So their solution, well, let's just kill Jesus. Easy. Problem solved. But they have a new problem on their hands. They have no authority to do so. They cannot kill Jesus without Rome's approval. So the solution? Get Rome to do it. Easy. But that leads us to another problem. Rome doesn't care. Jesus claiming to be God really does not matter to them. That is a religious issue. Keep it to yourselves. We aren't going to execute anyone over this kind of a claim. The solution then presents itself as present Jesus as a threat to Rome. And this is what we're going to see. This is what the religious leaders see as fit in this moment. This is how they need to handle this. They need to bring Jesus, show him to be a threat to Rome. It doesn't matter that they think he's the Son of God. They need to prove that Jesus is a threat to the empire, threat to the way things are structured, to make sure that Jesus is dealt with. So they're going to arrest Jesus. They're going to put him on a religious trial, find him guilty, and then they're going to bring him to Pilate, who is the Roman governor. And this is the conversation that happens. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And this is an incredibly important question because this would validate the threat that Jesus is. If Jesus says he's the king of the Jews, a people who at this time have no king, all they have is Rome. They have a Roman governor. There has not been a king in Israel for a long time. So if Jesus is claiming to be king, that makes him a real threat to the empire. So this is what Pilate's trying to figure out. Are you the king of the Jews? Is that your own idea, Jesus asks? Or did others talk to you about me? And the answer to that is yes, they definitely did. Am I a Jew? Pilate replied. Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it that you've done? Jesus said, and this is important, my kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place. So this question that Pilate's asking, are you a threat, Jesus? People are saying that you're a king. And then Jesus says, okay, if I have a kingdom, yes, it's not here. I am no threat to you, Pilate. You do not need to worry about me because my kingdom is not of this world. You are a king, then said Pilate. Jesus answered, you say that I'm a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me. And this is something we see Jesus do very often. He gets into conversations with people throughout the Gospels, like the woman at the well, starting to talk to her about water. She's talking about water. And then Jesus starts to elevate the conversation and start to talk about living water. This is one of those moments again. Pilate's talking about kingdoms. Jesus is talking about kingdoms, but he's talking about physical kingdoms. And then Jesus elevates the conversation to where they kind of miss each other in this moment. And then to this, Pilate just says, well, what is truth? What is it? So many people have asked that question over the years. With this, he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, I find no basis for a charge against him. So Pilate has done his job. Pilate's done his job here. He has decided, used his powers, that Jesus is not needing to be executed. He is no threat to Rome. The decision has been made. What is right in this situation is that Jesus should not be put to death. What Pilate sees as fit in this moment is actually good for a moment. Jesus has done nothing wrong. There's no basis for this charge. And you're going to watch. Pilate is going to try over and over again to set him free, but this pull towards things that are not good is going to win over in the end. And so at Passover season, the Romans would often release a prisoner just as a sign of good faith to the community to just like kind of settle them down a little bit. So Pilate, in an effort to let Jesus go, he says, okay, I'm going to give you Jesus, the one who some of you really love him. Others you don't, but he hasn't done anything. He hasn't harmed anyone. Or I'll give you this guy named Barabbas. Barabbas is a violent guy. He's actually tried to lead uprisings against the Romans. He's a real threat to Rome. Obviously, the no-brainer choice is let Jesus go. But the people, they say, no, we want Barabbas. You keep Jesus. And then so Jesus is kept. Barabbas is let go. and they brutally beat Jesus. Horribly, horrifically. And this is again Pilate trying to get them to let Jesus go. Maybe this will satisfy the bloodlust that they have for Jesus once they see him being beaten. And then once more, Pilate came out and said to the Jews gathered there, "Look, I'm bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no basis for charge against him." And now you can begin to feel Pilate just being torn apart. He's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to to get Jesus off the hook somehow. He's like, there's no reason that this man has to die. He's trying. But we're going to watch him be torn apart. I hope that you can feel that as we read it. When Jesus came out wearing a crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them, "Here's the man." So you're saying that he's king, you're saying he's son of God, but look at him. He is beaten and bruised. He's just a man. I have shown you that. There's nothing more to him. Let him go. He's just a man. As soon as the chief priests and the officials saw him, they shouted, "Crucify! Crucify!" Can you feel how this story is turning? Once again, people are just doing what they feel is necessary in this situation, but it is taking a dark, dark twist. Because this is the pull that the people have in them. Pilate answered, "You take him and crucify him. I'm not doing this. As for me, I find no basis for charge against him." Pilate is trying to let him go, but they won't let him. The Jewish leaders insisted, "We have a law, and according to that law, he must die because he's claimed to be the Son of God." Which you remember at the beginning, they didn't bring this claim to him because this wasn't enough. They knew that Pilate wouldn't care, that Rome's like, that's a religious problem. But once again, their real reason is surfacing. He claims to be the Son of God. You have to put him to death. When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid, and he went back inside the palace. And hear his words here. Imagine how torn up he is. "Where do you come from?" he says to Jesus. But Jesus gave him no answer. "Do you refuse to speak to me?" Pilate said. "Do you realize that I have the power to either set you free or crucify you?" Jesus, do you realize that I have control of this situation? I can let you go, or I can be the one who's going to send you to death. And Jesus answered, "You would have no power over me if it was not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin." So Jesus is simply saying, yes, Pilate, I know you think you're in control here, but God's actually the one who's in control of all of this. And so here we go. From then on, Pilate tried to set Jesus free, but the Jewish leaders kept shouting, "If you let this man go, you're no friend of Caesar. Anyone who claims to be a king opposes Caesar." And this is where things are going to turn for Pilate. Pilate's been trying to do the right thing. He's just judging him based on what he sees in front of him, and he sees an innocent man. But now the religious leaders are going to leverage some self-preservation and some self-interest in Pilate, saying, "Hey, if you let this guy go, he's a threat to the empire. He's a threat to Caesar. You let him go, you're no friend of Caesar. You actually oppose Caesar." And when Pilate heard this, he brought out Jesus and sat down on the judge's seat at a place known as the Stone Pavement. It was the day of preparation of Passover. It was about noon. "Here is your king," Pilate said to the Jews. But they shouted, "Take him away, crucify him." And one last plea from Pilate, "Shall I crucify your king?" Do you feel him being just torn up, but being pulled towards wrong in this moment? "We have no king but Caesar," the chief priests answered. And so in this moment, Pilate's going to say, yes, we can crucify Jesus. But the religious leaders, they say that they have no king but Caesar. For the people of Israel, this was an absolute out there thing to say. Their king is God. God is Israel's king. And they brought this whole problem of Jesus as a religious issue, that he's claiming to be the Son of God, and God is the most important thing in our world. He is our king. He is the one that we follow. But in their effort to maintain their control, to maintain their system, they say, you know what? We know the golden answer. We have no king but Caesar. Our allegiance is with Caesar. So take Jesus. They gave it all up for their own personal gain in this moment. Everyone did as they saw fit. The religious leaders, they just wanted to hold on to what is theirs. Pilate, he just wants to hold on to his job, hold on to his life probably. It all became about personal motivations in this moment. There was a feeling that maybe Pilate was going to be able to do the right thing, set Jesus free, when he clearly knew that Jesus was innocent and stated it over and over and over again. But in the end, self-preservation and self-interest won out. And this is why we have this problem that when people do as we see fit, it is so often motivated by self-preservation and self-interest. Self-preservation, either physically, emotionally, socially, self-interest, just how can I get ahead? This is the filter that we run stuff through of how we make decisions. And it does not lead us down a good path to just think of self. So as you're listening to this story, what are the places in our lives where, self-interest and self-preservation, these are the things that really steer the ship for us rather than what is truly good? So this story has repeated itself once again. The people have continued to do as they see fit. And as they see fit, it is not good. But Jesus, this story has been repeating itself over and over again. And Jesus has done no wrong. Nothing wrong. He knows exactly where he's headed. He knows what's about to happen to him. He knows he's going to be brutally beaten, mocked, and killed. And he has this conversation before all of these events take place with his Father in a garden. And he says, Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me. Saying, I don't want to do it, but if you're willing, please take it away. Yet not my will, but yours be done. So this story that has been repeating itself over and over again of people just choosing what they see fit. Jesus had an option here. He could have slinked away in the night. He could have rallied the people who would follow him to the ends of the earth to rise up against Rome. He had so many different options other than to take this devastating road that he had before him. But finally, someone has come who chooses obedience over everything else. Finally, someone who has come who has made the choice that we could not make, that we don't have the strength to make for ourselves. Jesus came and laid down his self-interest, laid down self-preservation for obedience to what his Father had called him to. What a breath of fresh air. If you were to read scripture from the beginning up until there, finally, the story has turned. And turned in our favor because of what Jesus has done. So in a moment, the band is going to play a song. You guys are just going to remain seated as we distribute the communion elements. And as those elements go by, if you're a follower of Jesus, we would love for you to participate in this moment. If you're not a follower of Jesus, you can just let the tray pass you by and just soak in this moment. This is a sacred moment. We want you to participate, but let the plate go by if you're not a follower of Jesus, and just soak in this moment. And for all of us, though, in this moment, what I ask is, ask God to show you the places in your life where you aren't choosing obedience over your own self-interest, over your own self-preservation? What are the areas of your life where you're like prioritizing, your social preservation or your emotional preservation and even your physical preservation over what it is that God has actually called you to? What are those things in your life, those moments? If you're a parent and you know that you're called to disciple your kids, but you'd rather just check out on your phone or work a couple extra hours. What are those moments? That habit or hang up that you might have that like you say, hey, I know it's not great, but it helps me get through. What is that thing that you need to bring to Jesus and surrender to him and give him your full obedience? He died for this. He gave us his Spirit so that he could help us through those things, through those moments where we would rather just do as we see fit than be obedient. So think about that, pray about that as we move into this song. Let me pray. Jesus, we thank you that you set aside your self-interest, your self-preservation, and you were obedient, even to death on a cross for us. God, I just pray that you would give us the courage to acknowledge the areas of our lives where we are not being obedient to the call that you have on our lives. You'd help us to surrender those areas and go through the walk, go through the process of whatever that means to submit that area to you. Jesus, I just pray that you would continue to speak to us this morning as the worship team plays, and that you would drop those areas in our hearts so that we would know and be able to give them back to you. We ask this in your name.